Alright guys, so I want to make sure we now know how to do skewers. And what is a skewer in chess? It's basically the reverse of a pin. So in a pin, the heavy piece we are pinning would be at the bottom, while in a skewer, the heavy piece will be at the front. So let me show you how that may look like. Right now we have a position where white has a rook and a pawn against black's rook. And both sides, of course, have a king. Now, if we are to get the pawn across, the rook needs to go somewhere else. But if the rook goes, for example, on d8 or c8 or d8, then the black rook would just scoop up the pawn and say thank you very much. That's why white needs to be really creative and find a way to get the pawn across while not giving it up. Now we can try to use the king and to get the king all the way to the top and then support the pawn, move the rook away and then queen the pawn. But that would take too long, and also the black rook will stop our king by doing checks when the king gets too close to the pawn. But if we do a skewer right now, the pawn will get to the end. And so guys, can we find a skewer with our rook? The answer is actually rook to h8. We wait for them to take the pawn and we say, come on, you can do it. Just take the pawn, it's free. But if they don't take it, the pawn will become a queen next move. Even if they do take it, well, this sets up the skewer. One shortcut to see skewers is basically when you can find two pieces on one line, or what I like to call one stick. So imagine this is one stick. I call it the shish kebab, and these are two pieces of fruit on our stick, right? And we put them together, and then we have our skewer. The heavy piece is in front, and the light piece is at the back. If the king was on, let's say, e7, and the rook was on f7, this would be a pin. But as it is, the king has to run away, and even when somebody steals one fruit from my shish kebab, I can always take the other. And that's how a skewer works. You can do a skewer with any straight line piece, which means a queen, a rook, or a bishop. So imagine the king was over here, and there was a black rook on a5. That's another example of a skewer. There is a shish kebab from e2 to h5. The heavy piece is in front and the light piece is at the back. It doesn't have to be a rook, it could be anything, but that would still be a skewer because the king had to go back and we can get the rook. Even if it wasn't a king, it could be anything else. For example, that could be a queen. And let's say that there were no checks and our king was well protected. The queen would have to run back away and then we could take the rook. They could take us, but we still win more points than they do. And that's the basis of a skewer. Now, how would a rook skewer work? The same way. So imagine there was a rook bishop over here, and there was a knight on, let's say, d7. Now, all I have to do is take the rook, put on d2, find the straight line, and that's your skewer. Now, when looking for skewers, look for unprotected pieces, because if there was a pawn on e2 or maybe a rook on e7, then the skewer wouldn't work because the two meatballs or the two fruits you're trying to attack are protected. So they don't have to run away from you. Furthermore, it's not just that they are protected right now, it's just that they can never be protected. For example, if the knight was on d8 and the bishop was on d4, and we say, oh, I skewered you, the bishop will say, no, you didn't, because I can protect my friend, the knight. And the skewer is broken. So make sure the pieces are not protected at the moment and cannot protect themselves.